Uh, hey everybody, my name is Pranav Sood and this is the 540 final presentation. So the main idea behind my project was to make a game that can help people with mental disabilities like activities of daily living or mild cognitive disorder uh, or something along those lines. And the way I was going to accomplish that was to use Enable Games package. Many of you didn't know. I talked to some of the folks and they didn't exactly know what I was doing. So here's a refresher of what activities of daily living and mild cognitive disorder actually is. ADL, again, ADL stands for activities of daily living. It includes stuff like bathing, dressing, transpiring, eating, or toileting. And with age, people have difficulties carrying out these basic tasks. And it can be really difficult and it can be if you need somebody's help to do that, it can be really difficult and you get dependent on somebody. So it can also occur due to some kind of injury. There are many different cases. There are many different ways in which you can develop deficiency of to carry out ADL. The second one is MCI, which stands for mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment, and cognitive impairment is when a person has a trouble remembering or learning new things, concentrating, making decisions that affect their everyday life. I'm focusing on mild because severe MCI is something that this game cannot help, or any game. The professional help is needed if somebody has severe MCI. But MCI can, but not always, lead to dementia. There are two forms of MCI: amnestic and non-amnestic. Amnestic MCI is something, it primarily affects memory, where they may start to a person may start to forget something, some important information that they would have recalled previously. And non-amnestic MCI is where the person has trouble making some decision. It affects their thinking skills, basically. Moving on, this is the project that I'm working on that focuses. These are the main two areas that I research where this game can work. So the game is supposed to work as a memory game, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the game Simon, but it's like a memory game where there are different objects, and in each turn an object highlights, and you have to select all the objects along with the current one. So let's say you have five objects named 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the first turn, the first object will light up or uh, increase in scale or something to indicate the player that this is the object they have to select. The player selects that object and moves on. In the second turn, the player has to select, uh, let's say object 1 highlights. So the player has to select 1, and then in the next turn, let's say 3 object 3 highlights. So the player has to select 1 and 3 in the next turn to move on. And in the third turn, let's say object 2 highlights. So the player has to select 1, 3, and 2. And if they mess up, they start over again. So it works as a pattern memory game. So here's the game in action. You can also find it on my blog post, but I'm using the Enable Games package here along with that uses Connect to detect my body movements and track which part of the body I'm moving. I have a collider on each of the hands on this model. So, and every block here has a rigid body. So it detects collision with the hand. Now, for some reason, the Connect was not picking up my right hand movement, and you can see my frustration there. So yeah, like you see, the in the first turn I have to select the green object because it highlighted. In the second turn, the green object will highlight twice, and I have to select it both times to move on. You can see on the right the score keeps on increasing, and in the third, I believe this is the third turn. I've really lost track here. So yeah, this is the third turn, and I started messing around with Enable Games. The way Enable Games package work is that there are a bunch of libraries, and there are that detect your body tracking using a webcam or a Connect or anything, any sort of video capturing device, basically. And it's basically meant for physical therapy exercises, and this is something that I tried to work with. And in this turn, you'll see that I deliberately mess up. So objects on the right and my score will go down. You see the score went down to 4 and then down to 3 and the list is empty. So this is the project in action. Moving on, going back to the presentation. So I want to talk about some of the hurdles and challenges that I faced during this presentation, not during this project. The biggest and the first and foremost challenge was taking on a project that was more programming focused as opposed to art focused. I talk about it in my very first blog post that I hate programming even though I'm from a CS background. So taking on project itself was a challenge and I was a bit scared but excited at the same time. I learned really many different concepts in Unity, the logic behind breakcasting, and difference between using a character controller and rigid body for character movements when I was just setting the base game up. And I problem solved a ton of issues. That was really fun. I actually put my CS knowledge to use in this. During the final stages, I was having, as an example, during the final stages, I had trouble figuring out if I should use queues or should I use lists, and I tried both of them and see like just trying to make eat every single thing work was fun and a learning experience in and of itself. Uh, Also, there was a challenge of changing the scripts at the last minute because Enable Games was not compatible with some of the scripts that I had, and changing perfectly working scripts is really scary, trust me. But I had to do that anyway. And finally, with the recent pandemic, I had to crunch the last few weeks, mm, because I'm not the only one who's using Enable Games package. So the Connect was something that I just could not take home and keep working on. Other people needed it. So huge shout out to Professor Tiefenbach and Arjun for helping me set up my Connect and Enable Games package. So things that I wanted to do but couldn't. This you could also call it future work, but I decided to call it that because I really wanted to do this. I'm not sure if I'll do it in the future or not. First of all, add a score heads-up display um, because looking at score in the inspector is not really helpful for understandable reasons. The second thing that I wanted to do was add an environment because that was the whole idea. This project would take me out of my comfort zone, but also cater to my interest of 3D modeling, texturing, and like all the good stuff. But I did have an environment ready for deployment from my 530 project, but I just couldn't get it in. The third thing is adding win conditions, which could I really didn't put much thought into it, but this was something in the back of my mind. If I did get everything to work, then I would add win conditions. And the way I envisioned this game was uh, that it was supposed to be a VR game, and I was really close to making a VR version, but I couldn't test it. I do have the VR version. This is the VR version of the game. It looks pretty similar to the final game, but I'm not sure if it works or not. That being said, this is the stuff that I wanted to do but couldn't. It's a bummer, but yeah. Well, moving on, this is the final slide. What are my final thoughts? Sure, it's not really a big project. Everybody's working with AI, and this is AI something that I'm thinking about doing next term. But I didn't need to do AI because this was a learning experience for me, and it was about learning something new, right? Getting out of your comfort zone, trying something new that you haven't tried before. So taking on a project that was programming focused was in and of itself a big challenge and an interesting one that I took. I definitely needed some help, some YouTube tutorials, some Stack Exchange stuff, but looking stuff up is okay. It's okay to look stuff up. Um, Also, I learned many different concepts, and I'm a bit more confident in my programming skills. Not too much. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but only a bit, only a bit. So that being said, this is the bibliography. This is the readings that I refer to actually get a grasp on what these deficiencies actually are. And these are some YouTube references that I looked up to help me finish the project. Uh, that being said, Thank you so much. This was really fun. I don't know what I'll be doing next term. I do know that I'm going to do something related to AI, but that's for next term. I hope everybody's staying safe in this current situation. Wash your hands, keep them off your face, follow the CDC guidelines. Self quarantine is hard, I know, but stay safe, everybody. Thank you.